Hi, friends. AI is super cool, but sorry, it's not perfect. And we're still learning about some of the problems and dangers it can have. That's why it's so important to explore AI with a parent, teacher, or guardian to keep things safe. AI is amazing, but your safety always comes first. Ready to dive in together? Let's go.
Welcome to the AI for Kids podcast, where playtime, learning, and creating collide bit by bit. Ever wonder how your phone recognizes your face? How does a game learn to get harder as you get better? This is AI. This podcast is designed for kids like you and your human parents, making the complex world of AI easy to understand and, most importantly, fun. So are you ready to unlock the mysteries of artificial intelligence? Subscribe and join us on AI for Kids. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to AI for Kids. Today's guest is someone who is on a mission to make sure kids don't just use AI, but actually understand it. We have Dipti Bhide, the CEO and co-founder of LittleLit AI, the world's first all-in-one AI platform that is, guess what, kids, just for you. She is an AI expert, an author, and has built tech that has been used by over 500 million people. Yes, I said billion with a B, but most importantly, she's here to show us how kids can use AI safely, creatively, and in a way that actually makes learning fun. Before we dive in, Dipti, let's loosen up with a quick game. But I do also want you to say hi and just tell everyone who you are before we get started.
Yeah, no, I think Amber, you did a great job of introducing me and what we are all about. So, my name is Dipti. I am the CEO of LittleLit AI for Kids, just for kids, like you said.
So let's do our quick round to loosen things up. I'm going to give you some AI powered superpowers.
Okay.
Just for today, you can only pick one. Which one are you choosing? And then let me know why. So the first one is you can choose an AI brain where you can instantly learn anything, but only for 24 hours. So that
Okay.
superpower goes away.
Okay.
The second one is an AI sidekick, which is going to be a robot buddy that helps you with everything, but only answers you in riddles.
Okay.
And then lastly is an AI time machine. You can visit any time in the past or future, but only for 10 minutes. What are you choosing and why?
Can I choose all? Oh, let's.
That's the dream, right?
That's the dream, right? This is a tough one. I think the first one.
Okay.
Because, like, I know that I can only learn something for 24 hours, you said. But imagine being an artist one day and a scientist another and flying a plane the next day and, like doing some amazing things for a day. That would be quite fun, right? And I think that's kind of the point of AI too, is really extending our ability by adding AI superpowers. So I think I'll choose the first one and do a lot of different things.
I love that. I love the idea of learning a bunch of different topics. Like even in my own personal life, I just love reading and learning about things. So I love that one too. If I were to choose, this was hard for me too. I like the learning one, but I may just visit the past or future and then tell myself to buy Bitcoin.
That's a good one. I was also thinking about it because I thought, wait, if I could go in the future, I could actually see if that whole thing about robots with us became real or not. So that would be interesting.
I would go to my younger self and say, Bitcoin, buy it. That's it. I'm out.
Yep, that is true.
So you work at huge companies like Microsoft and Dell, but now you're focused on AI for kids. What made you
Mhm.
switch from building tech for adults to helping little people or young people learn about AI?
I think I'm a mom, and like a lot of parents, the world changes when you become a parent, and you become a lot more aware about the next generation, about young kids and the youth. And did you know there is about 1.2 billion kids
Oh, wow.
in the elementary and middle school ages in the world? So that's like a lot, right? So I was this typical tech professional, have been in AI and machine learning for a number of years now, before even GPT came along. And the whole time everybody is thinking about building stuff for adults. It's about their productivity, it's about their automation, and it's all about the adults. And if you think about it, we are all building this is all going to be probably ready in 5 to 10 years in like a completely full sort of reality. And who's going to be in the workforce at that time? It's the kids of today. And so this big realization hit me as a mom that we need to build something for the young ones, for the kids, because they are going to be really the ones who are going to live in this world, which is going to be completely filled with AI, and they need to be equipped. So we call AI a life skill. And I think that became a sort of obsession that no, we need to really cater to the kids. And there is very little out there that is doing that. I mean, your podcast was one of the first ones that I came across, by the way, that is even talking to kids about AI. A few YouTube videos here and there and a few cartoons, that was about it.
Yeah.
Nada, nothing more. And so I tried doing it with my kids, and I tried sort of teaching my 10-year-old ChatGPT, and he lasted like 5 minutes before the novelty wore off. He's like, okay, I'm going to ask it to tell me a joke. And then there was a little bit of a Q&A, and that was about it. And that sort of made me realize that there is this tremendous potential that AI has, even for kids. And it is a great equalizer. You don't need to be an adult to really have fun and use AI. But then there are no safe and child friendly tools. Like I said, GPT doesn't work. So that's why we decided to do this. And really, that's sort of the story of why I left doing adult software and then making it for kids.
I absolutely love that, because you're right. We were talking about before we hit record. I used to talk about AI for adults just because my background's in data, and saw this thing coming up. Plus my initials are AI. So I was like, hey, let's make sure. I realized, like you, there was nothing for kids. High schoolers have more than like elementary and middle, but that elementary to middle group, they're just like lacking. And like you said, when AI is truly like infiltrated in the workforce, that's going to be their generation.
Yep.
And how are we preparing them? I love that LittleLit AI is the first of its kind, right?
Yep.
So how did you come up with this exact idea? And what was the hardest part about making it a reality? I know you talked about your son, him playing with ChatGPT, but how did you do this?
Yeah.
What was hard about making it come to life?
Actually, he plays a central role in there as well, in that story as well. So this is actually a true story, and I'm going to try to paint it like one.
Okay.
Because it actually happened. So GPT had come out. This is probably February or March, right after it came out. So my son, who's 10 now, he was about 8.5 at that time, and he is on the autism spectrum. So he is someone who loves certain things and can get obsessed by them. And then the other things are like super boring, right? So I was trying to get him to learn math. And we were all talking. I was talking to his therapist, and then I was talking to his teacher, and we were like, oh, he is bored and he's not interested. And so I was like, have you tried using space for like giving him math sums using space? And they're like, yeah, maybe. And I just came home and I asked GPT to make 10 math problems with space in it. And once he came home, we actually sat down, and I did see him really hooked and really do it. And that was a big moment for how quickly AI could personalize and be used for a kid. And we kept doing that. And then even with my younger kid, she is incredibly creative. And so we started doing Mid-Journey had come out at that time, and we started doing that. And so that's really what got us started into thinking that this whole experience for kids and AI needs to be about using AI for their interests and their needs. I remember we had like these post-it notes, hundreds of them, that we went through as a team trying to figure out what all can a kid do with AI. They can make stickers, they can make a song, they can write a story, they can come up on recipe, they can use it to figure out what to do with their Legos. And so it just exploded, and our thinking exploded, and it became much more personalized and kid specific. And so yeah, he really started it. And this whole awareness that if a child is given AI, they could do amazing things. The hardest part was this piece. It's also the most funnest, is how do you go out of a chat window of a GPT construct or a text string large language model or a DALI or a Mid-Journey type of a construct into something that a kid actually cares about and is interested in, right? And so to take AI and use it and apply it to features and games and activities and learning tools in LittleLit, which are fun for a kid, that they can write a story, like I said, or they could create art, is the hardest part, that journey. But it has also been the most fun and rewarding one, because it makes you really creative about what AI can do. And like you said, adults could learn that too. It's not just
Adults, please. Also, you can try these tools if you're scared. They're made for kids, so they'll work for you too.
Exactly. They're actually more fun than your own tools. So.
There you go. And it's funny how you mentioned putting a kid on like a chat GPT, like the UX on chat GPT. I've
Uh-huh.
said this about for adults too. It's not intuitive. It says ask a question. There's like sometimes there's like prompts that it
Yeah.
shares with you. If you don't know this space,
Right.
to go in there is intimidating. You may ask something basic, like you said, a joke, but it doesn't guide you through the process. And that's like the AI literacy piece. So I'm glad you're doing that.
Mhm.
And I'm glad you're doing it for kids because they're going to be ones using this more than anyone else.
Exactly. Yep.
So you have a book too, which is like amazing. It's called Whole Child AI, and it takes a different approach to teaching AI. What does it mean to raise a healthy AI first citizen? What also does that mean?
Okay. Yep. Let's a lot to unpack there. So we talked about why we started this, right? So the kids of today are going to grow up in a world where AI is going to be everywhere. My 6-year-old is learning AI before she's learned how to do Google search. So
Exactly.
that transition has happened already, right? So this is the first generation that's going to go out in the world as adults or even right now and use AI organically in all aspects of their life. AI is going to be present everywhere, and it already is. This is not even future. Like just a couple of years ago, we used to talk about it in future tense.
Right.
I have realized I still speak in future, but it's
Same.
already present,
It is here.
right? So that's what I meant by the AI first generation. Is this is that generation that's going to be AI first. The first technology they're going to touch and use for most of their work is going to be AI. And so we have to kind of think from that framework or that mental model to begin with. So when we say, okay, let's do something for the kids, it was very clear to us that we can't just throw a tool up there for a child, make it more fun and engaging, but just throw it there and throw them there and say, okay, go play. It has to be more than that. And as parents, as people in the community,
Yeah.
we are all so worried about ethics when it comes to AI. We are worried about kids cheating. We are worried about safety. We are worried about privacy. We are worried about them losing critical things like creative skills or critical thinking, decision making skills,
Yeah.
because they start overly relying on AI. So there is a whole bunch of anxieties, a whole bunch of fears that also come along with the reality, not the option, but the reality that AI is going to be part of our kids' lives. And so we looked at a way to address all of that as opposed to give this child a AI tool and let them run with it,
Oh yeah.
which was much more like throwing them in the deep end. So we kind of really got inspired by Dr. Bruce Perry, who has done a lot of work in whole child as a philosophy. So this is not new. Whole child is not new. We've just added the AI part to it. He had done a lot of work with trauma kids. That's how it started, and talked about how a child can only learn in the context of their whole life. And you cannot just think of them in a classroom setting learning a particular subject and not
Mhm.
getting influenced by what's happening in their life or what's happening around them, their identity, their needs, their psychology, and so on. And the same philosophy is what we have kind of realized, that this is what AI education also needs. So when you think about the whole child AI framework, it talks about not just how to use AI, but what is AI. It demystifies it for them. They understand how does AI work. AI can make mistakes. What is the difference between human and human interaction versus human and AI interaction? AI has bias. So I can go on and on. But there is so many different elements to it, and the framework ties it all together. And that's what then we wrote the book on and built LittleLit based on that.
Ah, that's pretty quick. I'll make sure to link the book in the show notes because to your point, like the whole idea of whole child, whole family, those concepts have been around for a while,
Mhm.
but applying that to AI is really interesting and it's just making me think, how do we make sure the kid gets that whole experience
Exactly.
with interacting with these tools? And I'm glad you said this because I honestly, it didn't hit me until I interviewed someone earlier last year where she was basically like the first interaction with the internet was literally AI. And I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I don't have kids, but I have nieces and nephew. And my nieces use it all the time to ask questions, but it didn't click that they had never been on Google yet.
Yep.
And then even you saying it like, wow, yeah, that's their first search, that's their first Google
Yep.
is an AI. And so they are more understanding of that's the first time, that's all they know. So imagine they're going to want that thing to get better and be able to work with them in a better way than we are. We're like, oh yeah, I'll just ask it for movie times or something random. But they're like, no, I'm asking it for all the things,
Yeah.
how I use the internet.
My 6-year-old asked AI the other day, Google Home, do you know Alexa? And I'm listening, and Google Home is like, yeah, she's one of my many friends. And then, then she said, so who's better, you or Alexa? I was like, oh my God, for them, this is all organic.
It is.
Did you realize that we talked about not doing Google search, but instead using AI? Also, not using it within the framework of a laptop, but a smart device.
Yeah.
So they are using it on their remotes when talking to YouTube. They are using it with Alexas. So they are using it without even realizing. And that's why the whole child aspect comes into play. It is part of their immersive world,
Oh, yeah.
and we need to stress that.
I'm glad you said that because I remember there was a kid here, came to my house with his mom, probably about 4. I know he can't like fully type out things. He was playing Among Us. And I'm like, how are you talking to people? And he's using the voice to communicate. And then like how they're on YouTube without knowing how to read, they were able to navigate this world. So it's a good point of, even though we enter this world very differently, they're already entering this world and they're going into it in a way that works for them. And they're navigating it way better than I'm able to navigate even things like YouTube.
Yeah, and in LittleLit, we always thought that we will build this for elementary and above. Be very honest, when we first started, I felt even if I'm saying elementary, I really mean maybe third or fourth grade, right? I was
Yeah.
discounting the ability of kids to adapt. And we have so many users on LittleLit who are 6 years old, and they use the mics because we have mics everywhere. They just talk to it. They have skipped the writing altogether. Now
Yeah.
trying to work on creative ways to incorporate the ability to spell and articulate beyond just speak. But it's empowering because this child doesn't have to wait to grow up to become a very fluent and to access information. So
The other thing I wanted to really quickly talk about, you're also a mom, which you stated. How do your own kids feel about AI? Do you think it's cool or just a way to help with their homework? Or maybe not at all?
So they are naturally getting a front row seat to LittleLit.
Yeah.
Call them my chief testing officers because they're always using it. So that's definitely made them a lot more, I would say, aware and enthusiastic users. But it's really rewarding for me to see that they are using it creatively. They are using it, as a resource. So, for example, so she's 6 now. I noticed around 5.5. There's 2 ways in LittleLit that kids can make a story. The young ones can do it by just clicking on some pictures like this fairy and this mouse. They can just do that, and then AI will make a story for them. Now that's a shortcut, right? Doesn't require a lot of thinking. They are not necessarily doing a lot of creative work with it. But the other one is it coaches you through a series of questions like, where is the story happening and what is the character, right? So I have actually seen at 5.5, 6 itself, I was surprised to see her preferring the second one over the first one,
Yep.
because she wanted more agency. And she realized that in the first one, I kind of just tapped those 2, 3 things, but then AI makes the whole story. And not what I was imagining inside my head. And that sort of set in, and she started realizing if I want AI to do the story that I want or I am thinking in my head, then I'm going to use this one because this one gives me more agency and more control over the narrative. And so that's just a small example, but they have become very creative. They're using AI the right way. I hope they'll continue doing that. But yeah, I think so far, kind of not messing it up.
And the reality is like how your daughter is interacting with that. A lot of other kids don't have that option. And a lot of kids and parents and teachers don't really know how AI works. They just use it. What's one thing about AI that most people totally misunderstand that you've either learned or your kids have learned along the journey?
I think there's a couple of things. I think the biggest one I think is that there's a lot of hype about AI. There's a lot of, robots taking over, thinking of AI as an actual tangible identity, like a actual thing. What everybody's missing is AI is not capable of independent thought. AI is really collective intelligence. This professor at Stanford who is looking for extraterrestrial organisms, so completely different field. But I was watching his TED talk and he said the most amazing thing. He said AI is just a reflection of our collective intelligence. This is not a new species,
Mhm.
because he was talking in that context. And I think that's the one thing that people miss is, we are all collectively thinking, adding and contributing to this data
Yeah.
that AI is training on, and then AI is narrating it back to us. So it's great to access the collective intelligence, but it's not strange species and a new entity. So as long as we understand that, we're going to be fine. So maybe it's a little meta, but that's kind of the one thing that comes to my mind.
I told you my background's in data. So the way you frame that makes total sense to me. And because to your point, people are afraid of the Terminator or iRobots of the world, when in reality, like you said, is all of our collective humanity that got us to the point where we now can access all that information in a way that helps us make better decisions. I love that thought.
Yeah.
And one thing that does come up around like the Terminator idea or the scary robots is that a lot of people talk about using AI safely and ethically. What does that actually mean for kids using AI at home or in school?
Yeah, like a lot to unpack there. Okay, so let's talk about safety first. So there are so many different layers to it. We talked earlier about kids talking to these home devices or talking into the air with mics and things like that. And they're all talking back in a humanistic voice. I say humanistic because it's not a human, but it's humanistic in an effort to create comfort, but it can also confuse kids, even adults, but it can especially confuse kids. It can especially make them not understand the difference between an AI and a human. And it is so very important that we build that awareness from the get go, because otherwise they're going to share private, sensitive information with AI. They're going to listen to AI's advice on things that they shouldn't. They are going to probably end up using AI as a sounding board for things they should be talking to an actual adult or a human. So I think when it comes to safety, start with is talk to our kids about differences between AI and human and how they can recognize that. I think conversations such as, do you think this picture you're seeing in front of you is made by an AI or a human? Being able to have those critical conversations with them so that they can start thinking actively and not just believe. We lived in a world, Amber, where seeing was believing. We used to say that, right? I'll believe it when I see it.
That's so true.
Not true anymore. So now it's like, you see it, but is it true?
So true.
It's a level of complexity we are not even equipped to understand ourselves. So we need to teach them through tools, through scenarios, through experiments.
Oh, yeah.
We do this fun thing where we show kids images and say, which one is real? So let them kind of think through, wait, so this lion or this lion, the eyes look blue, the eyes look brown. Let them really analyze. So that's safety, right? And then also talking about the fact that AI is just another technology and that it can make mistakes is another piece. So I think starting with recognizing what is AI and then ensuring that AI is not there for your emotional needs. AI is not there for you to share private and sensitive information with. AI can make mistakes. So if you think AI is giving you something that you need a second opinion on, it's probably true. And you should go to an adult and you should look at other sources of information. So we have to build systematically that rigor in a child's mind to deal with AI. And it is a process, but it's important. So that's how I think about safety when I think about AI. As far as the ethics are concerned, that's another completely, big relevant beast. But I would kind of look at it a few ways. AI is for creating, not for cheating.
That's good.
So understanding the difference, understanding that this is not for a copy paste experience. This is a tool that can actually free you and really get you over your technical limitations to do stuff. So use it like that and use it to create, use it to extend your capabilities rather than just copy. And that's again experience that they need to be given through not just preaching but doing. The example I gave you earlier about Ananya doing that story two different ways, in a way she actually got over it herself. She realized the ethics of using her own ideas versus just relying on AI to throw something at it. And that's the difference, right? How they use it is a practice, a habit. For example, in LittleLit, when a homework helper is asked, what is 25 multiplied by 37? It's not give them an answer. It is give them steps.
I love it.
So it says, good question. This is how you should solve it. These are the steps. Tell me if you need help. So sort of like really slowing the kids down. You want to write a story. I'm not going to write it for you. I'm going to say, what's the character? Where does it take place? And maybe being a sounding board as opposed to just giving you a story. So building tools and giving them access to tools which teach them to really use their own thoughts is another way to inculcate that whole cheating, non-cheating barrier. And I think the last one I would touch on, and not taking credit for work that is done with AI. I think it's a very complicated sort of ethical quagmire. I feel like I've had conversations with teachers and parents on both sides of the argument. One saying, they should absolutely write everything on their own. I don't want them to use AI. But the other more realistic point of view, which I agree with as well, which is AI is there. It's a tool. They should use it. We used to use autocorrect and we got used to it. So we use Google, right? If we had AI, we would have used AI. The boundary is to be able to say, I made this piece of art with AI. I gave it my ideas, but I used it for execution. There's no shame in that. And I think we need to all be okay with it as well so that they won't feel the need to mask and lie. But then we have to build that habit that this is done with AI, this is done powered by AI, so that they can slowly start coexisting and co creating and collaborating with AI, using it as a co pilot, like Microsoft says. Ethics is a very interesting idea. I'll leave you with one last one, which is the good and bad use of AI. And with middle schoolers and high schoolers slowly going into the world and using AI, AI is powerful. AI can do amazing things. But then we have to decide whether we want to be the good guy or the bad guy, right? Kids need to understand how they can use AI for good, but not for bad, and how they can be safe. So, one example I would like to give is one of those activities we do in Little It, where we ask them to design an action figure or a 3-year-old using AI. And this is a tricky one because what we're really trying to coach them is for a 3-year-old, it needs to be non-violent. It needs to have a certain friendliness to it. It needs to be within the framework of a 3-year-old's mind so that it doesn't scare them, but it is a superhero. So it's a balance. It's a balance of both. And that's a good way for such examples and such techniques are great ways for them to learn that they have to use AI, but within a framework of what's good for everybody else as well.
That's really cool because even the idea of like the superhero and then giving the kid the prompt up for a 3-year-old, like that is a way you teach a child how to think about AI, think about AI ethics, think about AI safety. Like there's pieces in there that they may not have upfront thought about, but once you walk them through that, you're helping them build that brain connection to say that's what it is. And that's, I think, very valid and a good point. They may know some things that they've been taught, but how do you then reinforce that is through what you just said. And I think that's super cool. So I'm 10,
Yeah.
not really, but I'm 10 or middle schooler listening right now,
Mhm.
and I want to learn about AI. Where do I start?
So you're 10, but I'm thinking of what Rohan would want. And I understand that the temptation at that time, or a 10 for a 10 or 12-year-old, would be to use AI to do some really cool things, right? Create with
Oh, yeah.
AI, make some amazing visuals, make some music, make some animations, or even make some games, so on and so forth. Also explore how AI can apply itself into the various parts of the world. But I would say everybody should start with the basics. So I think understanding what is AI, how it works. You're a person from data.
Okay.
Okay, so you told AI to make a monkey with a banana. How did AI actually make it? It's not magic. It has looked at 100,000 pictures of monkeys and bananas, and it is taking the words that you gave it, and it's using that to make decisions for creating the shapes and the colors and the strokes to make that monkey. So, having that basic understanding and first starting there is super important. Anything, when we learn swimming, we don't just start diving. We first learn how to breathe and how to glide. And so we have to take through our steps. So, even though by age and by excitement, a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old might be really wanting to run, we need to slow them down to understand the basics, also understand the ethics and the safety concerns around it before they really start going deep.
I love how you related it to like swimming or anything else we learn. Even learning how to drive a car, whatever it is you're doing, there's steps, there's reading, there's learning, then you do it. And I think it's a slight misstep because we don't have AI literacy I don't think in elementary. Some schools are adopting that stuff. We have English and well, but we don't have like AI literacy. So kids are often learning about it through some app or through just exploring. So thank you for saying that because I think that's a really good point. Don't run. You have plenty of time to learn this thing, learn the basics. And I think that makes total sense to me.
Safety first and awareness first, and then jump into it.
Oh, yeah. AI can still, even if I'm a 10-year-old just learning the basics, right? It can still feel super complicated. You teach it in a way that makes sense for kids. What's the easiest way, once I've learned the basics, to start playing around with AI and actually understand it?
I think you said it. I think the easiest way is by doing,
Okay.
like really exploring and experimenting and combining it with theory. So we thought a lot about how we will give these tools to kids in Little It.
Mm-hmm.
And this was our answer to your question as well, which is how do we do it? You combine learning AI with doing AI or using it. And then it becomes a total sort of complete experience. So think about it as you're saying, okay, AI has memory, retains a lot of information across everything, and da 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 da. Da. You're learning this concept and you're becoming aware as a child that AI has memory. If right after that, if you tell the child, okay, now use this AI chatbot, and why don't you ask it any question that comes to your mind? And maybe it's a science question, or maybe it's about a person or a historical figure, and AI is giving you that answer. Now you're connecting the dots right away in the moment. You're saying, okay, AI has memory, it accesses this memory to give me this information. So this is how those two pieces come together. So I think constantly combining small bite-sized concepts with experiments, exploration, really trying and testing it. Another good example I would give you, because I really love this one, is understanding AI's bias. So we have all these different biases that AI can have, right? My favorite example is talking about gender bias within the AI construct, and saying that a lot of data that was used to train AI is historical and has a lot of
Mhm.
points of views from men, but doesn't have enough representation of women in the data, which means that AI can then make mistakes. And we need to be aware of that. Now, that's a nice,
Right.
thing to understand. But immediately after that, there is a challenge where kids are told to make community figures like firefighters, and asking AI to create stickers or images of firefighters, and then observing whether AI is actually giving them a woman and a man, or just sticking to your stereotypical man firefighter, and then teaching them, okay, so now this time around, say a woman firefighter, and train that AI tool to give you a more equitable representation. So again, an example of learning and doing. So as long as we keep combining these two, I think it becomes real and it becomes tangible and immediately, and it's the same for any learning. We are just applying it to AI.
That's so cool. The other thing that is interesting as well was around like cat and dogs. So
Mhm.
I tried to get AI to prompt a cat chasing a dog. It would not,
Okay.
because normally dogs chase cats and all the images were dogs chasing cats.
Yep.
It refused to. So I have a cat who chases dogs. So I wanted an image of that.
Oh wow.
But because of the bias or the
Yeah.
unequal representation of that data, it will not create it. The most I got was like
Right.
a cat next to a dog, but other than that, it wouldn't do it.
So I think that's another awareness that we do try to build it as well, that AI isn't static, it's a living, breathing thing. The more people ask cats to chase dogs, it will eventually get it, right?
Yeah,
It's an activity, and I think we should get kids involved in this movement as well.
I agree 100%. Speaking of kids, do you think kids should learn how to code before they use or learn AI, or can they start with AI first?
Oh, absolutely, they can start with AI first.
Okay.
I also think there are two very disparate concepts which get confused very easily amongst everybody. Even teachers. I was just talking to an educator just the other day, and I said, we have AI literacy curriculum for kids, and teachers can engage in school settings. And she's like, okay, but then do we need a tech teacher for it? And I was like, no, you need like your English teacher or any teacher
Yeah.
who is teaching kids. And then it's like, but isn't it coding? And it's not. It is not coding. A 1 in 100, let's say, kid wants to code because they want to gain technology skill sets, and that's something they're interested in.
Exactly.
All of 100 are going to use AI.
Right.
So learning AI has nothing to do with coding.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, it is a lot to do with communication. Most of our AI is through language models, and even visual models are based on language. And so it's all about being able to talk to AI and prompt AI, what we say prompt engineering, really just communicating with AI. And that's a skill that you can totally learn and should learn ASAP
Oh, yeah.
at whatever age. And it's nothing to do with coding. I think I would say it like that.
I'm glad you said that. For kids listening to this, you can go back to the P is for prompting episode. It'll be live by the time this one goes. I'm glad you said that, because often it's like, do you need to be able to code to help to influence it? But to your point, as long as you're using it, you're also helping to train those models. And like you said, 100% of us will be using AI. It's going to be a very small amount of coders. And even that AI is coding. And that's also a whole nother conversation another day. That's a reality that's actually happening.
Yeah, yesterday I heard Salesforce stopping to hire new coders now because AI is. I was like, what?
Yeah. We never thought that would happen, but it
But yeah,
is.
it's going to happen. And so, exactly.
Who are some of your favorite people or resources that kids and parents can follow to learn more about AI? I've started asking that question this season in particular because I want kids to know or parents to know who should they be following. Of course, other than yourself, like we'll make sure they connect with you. But who else should they be following? Who are you following?
I follow you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do. I think the ABC is a great resource, to be honest.
Thank you so much.
Also, I feel there are people like Sal Khan who kind of a competitor, but I would still name him because I do think they are good thought leaders thinking how things are really sort of unfolding in the education space or edtech space. So I think that's a good one to follow as well. But really, for me, it's about sort of looking at all sources available to say what are the latest research thesis on it. There are institutes like Anne Sophie Serif who basically work on AI and its ethical considerations when it comes to kids. So there is a lot of people who are focusing on specific aspects. So I think I read up on those a lot.
We'll definitely drop LittleLit in the chat as well as Khan Academy or Khan Migo in the chat for folks to learn more about that as well. If you could tell every kid one thing about AI before they start using it, what would it be?
Tough one. I think AI can make decisions and choices, unlike other technology, and we have to be very aware of that. It's not a washing machine that you press a button and only then it decides, I'm going to wash. And this is the temperature. Sensors aside, that's a little, okay, my analogy fell apart, but it has a little bit of AI. Right. But I think it's important that kids understand that AI is a technology that makes decisions, will take control over things. And so it's important that we are aware of that. It's important that we take all the decisions and choices made by AI with a pinch of salt, use our own critical thinking and human agency for acting on it or before sort of taking it and accepting it.
Yeah.
I think it's a little abstract, but I think again, through a lot of touch and feel experiments and exploration, it can definitely be something kids can understand deeply that, this is an AI choice. Like we talked about those stickers earlier of firefighters. It's AI's choice to make it that man, and AI didn't choose to make it a woman or a particular, person of color. And that's the choice. And so we have to challenge those choices when needed. And we have to accept them when not. But we have to understand that AI makes choices, that the algorithm's nature is to make choices and decisions.
Dipti, this has been amazing. You're making AI sound fun, safe, super exciting for kids, and hopefully their parents and teachers too. But before we go,
Right?
where can parents and teachers find little AI to share with their kids? And do you have anything special to share for our listeners?
Yeah. All right. So you can go to www.littlelit.ai. It's easy enough to remember the site. You can go and register there for your child or your class. You can get a membership which covers all aspects. So it covers AI curriculum. So teaches kids all about AI through various fun adventures in this city called Starlight. So it's kind of fun and cool. It has AI tutors. So kids can use it for personalized learning and homework. And it has an AI arcade where they can do amazingly fun stuff. They can play with each other, they can create things, they can make music, they can do a whole bunch of stuff. So that's kind of what LittleLit offers, and that's where you will get it. I do have a code for your listeners for 15% off. So I will AI for Kids 15. So just the name of your podcast and 15. For teachers out there that are your listeners, if they want to do a AI for Kids certification, then that's another thing that we offer. And for your listeners, because right now we're offering it for teachers for free if their school's signing up. But for your listeners, if some teachers just want to do it for their own learning, I can send you a form. And if they can fill it, then we can offer the certification free as well.
I love that. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll make sure and include all that in the show notes. And for folks who are interested, please make sure to feel free to reach out and use the code. Thank you for being here, Dipti. We can't wait to see how LittleLit AI continues to help kids become the next AI creators of the future. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. This was fun.
Same here. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us as we explored the fascinating world of artificial intelligence. Don't keep this adventure to yourself. Download it, share it with your friends, and let everyone else in on the fun. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. See you next time on AI for Kids.